Super cool radio.
Hello everyone, I am Matthew Thomas, and this is Super Cool Radio. I got a great guest with me at this time. He's an incredible guitarist and part of a killer arena rock band known as T.O.U.R, Titans of Unforgettable Rock. Please welcome Fred Hicks. Thank you so much for hanging out with me.
All right, looking forward to it.
So before we get started, one person I got to thank for this great interview, that is promoter Christina Avila. So big shout out to her for making this interview possible. She does so much great work with many awesome artists. Before we dive into everything, I want to start with a fun question, Fred.
Sure.
So I'm going to put you on the spot. If you were taking a trip and you're going to listen to 3 albums on this trip, which ones would you bring?
Oh boy, that's a good question. There's too many I'd probably would bring. But since you asked that question, I probably would bring Led Zeppelin for the 70s. It's kind of my shtick. So it would be any of the Led Zeppelin albums were great back in that day. Another one would probably be Aerosmith, Get Your Wings. That got me started in rock and roll in general. And then probably another one would be, I've always liked Lynch Mob for some reason. So Robert Mason's just a great vocalist, and I kind of love what he does with it.
Yeah, it was funny. I was just talking about Lynch Mob with my brother before this interview, because that's Dawkins' guitarist. He's part of that, right? That he's part of Lynch Mob, I believe,
Correct.
Right?
Yes, George Lynch. Yes.
Yes. See, yeah, we were just talking about it because I went to a CD convention earlier today, and we were looking through CDs, and like there was like one booth had like a bunch of Lynch Mob stuff. So I was going through that, and I go, "There's some pretty good stuff here."
It's excellent. It's a great album. It really kind of got me really stuck on George Lynch. In the earlier days, we liked Dokken. And then once they split up and he got into the Lynch Mob, he actually had Oni Logan singing on his first album, but Robert Mason sang on his second album. Both are great vocalists. I just tended to like Robert Mason a little bit more, just a little bit.
No, I got you. Both are solid albums, and it's in Dokken is still going. Obviously, I think he just started the world tour, or well, a U.S. tour, I should say. So I think he just started that a few weeks ago too.
I think you're correct. I know George has been involved in several different bands during the years, so it's always interesting to see what he's doing.
Definitely, for sure. So the 3 albums I was thinking of, the first one, I got to go with L.A. Guns, their first album. I just love that album. It's like hard hitting, it's hard rock music. It's so just, I mean, obviously 80s, but also just really awesome at the same time.
Good choice.
I would go with that one. I would go with Iggy and the Stooges, Raw Power, because that's just a classic album in its own right, and just awesome from front to back. And then Highway to Hell by AC/DC.
That's a really good one. Yes, I haven't listened to that whole album probably in a while.
Yeah, I just had it on my way back to my house, and that's just, I mean, that was like the pinnacle of Bon Scott. It would have been interesting where they went with him, but it's just a good album.
Yes, he went away way too early.
Oh yeah. It would have been interesting what AC/DC would have done with him continuing on with the Back in Black album, if they would have done it how they would have done it, but you never know. But it would have been very interesting to see where they would have went.
Absolutely.
Focusing on you, obviously, I'm chatting with awesome guitarist Fred Hicks. So, how did you get started as a musician, and what drew you to playing guitar?
So, in my teenage years, about the age of 14, me and a friend of mine went to this concert. It was Ronnie Montrose with Sammy Hagar. So I think it was, I think Robin Trower was headlining. There was 3 bands back in the day. You could $10 or $15 for 3 bands, which was great. So we went to that concert, and we looked at each other, and that's what I want to do. So we decided we'd buy guitars, and we bought acoustic guitars, and then we bought some electric guitars, and some little small cheap amps. Nothing expensive. Our parents weren't going to go for it back then, so we started doing that. And then I don't know, around the age of 18, and I was just a rhythm guitarist then. Some friends of mine said, "Hey man, why don't you be a frontman?" And I said, "I don't know. I'll try it out." It's really hard getting used to doing something without nothing in your hands. So I didn't know what I was really doing, but I got into it. And for the next, I don't know, 35 years, that's what I did. So when we started T.O.U.R, I had met a really good guitar player, Mick Peace. He was just shredder. And we talked about it, and we were going to do this Van Halen thing, and everyone was doing Van Halen. So before Eddie passed away, so we decided that let's kind of put that in the back burner for a little bit and kind of think about that. And then Mick called me up one day and said, "Hey Fred, I've got a great idea. It should be right in the pocket for you. Let's do Dokken." I said, I did Dokken when I was younger, and we had cover bands, and I said, I always kind of struggled with that, but let's give it a shot and see what happens. So we did, and it turned out really great. So I said, we were stuck, and then we said, well, we need one more thing that we want to do. We're going to do Rat. So we want to bring the ladies into it, So that's how that kind of worked out with that. But throughout the years, I went back and forth with guitar, back and forth, and now I still play rhythm and sing, and T.O.U.R has some plans for that later on. Right now we're just doing the Dokken and the Rat, and we'll probably do that for the next year, maybe year and a half, till we get everything nice and solidified, and then we're going to expand out a little bit further.
That all sounds very cool. I do want to cover T.O.U.R, but just real quick. So did you find the hard transition going from just playing guitar to being a frontman without guitar?
I did. For me, it was real difficult just not having anything in your hands. When you're used to having something in your hands and you're playing, you're kind of preoccupied with what's going on with the guitar and everything with the band. And so I was just singing backups back then, and then some of the leads. So once I switched over to that, it took me about a year to kind of get used to that, really feel comfortable with what I was doing, because I really didn't know what to do, or of course we didn't have many things for videos, so VHS back then. So you had to have these cameras and everything else to go along with it. But it schooled me in what I really need to do. Once I looked at the videos, I was going, yeah, you're looking a little weird. You better get that together. So a lot more time out on the road helped out with that.
Yeah, definitely. But it's just, I always kind of ask that question when they transition from an instrument to just being a frontman with other bands, and obviously with you, it's always kind of different, because obviously you're going from playing guitar and now to just standing there with a mic, and you have to also be entertaining but not weird at the same time. There's a fine balance between that.
It is, and it takes a while just to get used to that and feel comfortable with it. Videos do help, because that way you can look and go, okay, I see what I need to do now, and kind of you can polish it up and look better, the next time. The more you do it, the better it gets, obviously. So it took a little while. Then I had to work on the image, because back then we had the hairspray and the big hair. So that was really funny to see me back then with hairspray. And we always had this mullet cut going on. I don't know why. So it was short on the top and long on the sides. It looked terrible. 2 songs in, and the hairspray was gone because you're sweating. So it was a futile effort. But we kept Final Net in business. We bought it by the case.
How much hairspray did you use in a week back then?
Oh gosh, don't ask. We played we played 7 nights a week. So I know I went through at least 2 bottles a week, you know, trying to keep it up, keep the air up. You know, so it was ridiculous. And the whole band's doing it, you know, not just me, but the whole band. So
Oh wow, yeah, you definitely you kept the hairspray business in for a very long time with those profits.
yes, and add to that spandex, which was even worse. Now that I think about the way we look for the spandex on, finally we figured out we're not just going to wear spandex, guys. We're going to take jeans and just rip them all up so there's not much left of them, and that way the spandex are kind of showing through. So we kind of felt a little more comfortable with that. But not all of us look good in spandex. So it wasn't a good thing.
Yeah, that's a hard image to pull off. Even I mean, even if you're in really good shape, it's still it still depends.
Yes, and no one wants to see guys in spandex after they're 50. So I mean,
So,
leather. Yes.
so we won't see you in spandex anymore.
No, no. It's either leather or some custom jeans with leather in it. No more spandex, please.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, obviously, big reason I want to chat with you. So, and you covered it a little bit with T.O.U.R, Titans of Unforgettable Rock. So how did obviously you kind of started with the origin of that, but how did that come up? Like, what was the idea behind it, and now how has it evolved to present day?
Sure. So after Mick and I got together, we needed a bass player and a drummer. And so Todd Sharon was one of the drummers we were considering. And Todd has this great talent for coming up with marketable ideas. And he knew the bass player. So we started talking to Todd. And a few weeks later, we were thinking about a name, how to come up with this, and how we're going to try to market this. And Todd was sitting there. He goes, I came up with a name now, and it's T.O.U.R. And we're going, T.O.U.R. What's up with that? He goes, well, it's T.O.U.R. Titans of Unforgettable Rock. I went, oh, that's great. He said it took me a few weeks to come up with it, but that's how it ended up coming to fruition. So once we did that and had the name, then we could actually pull in the bass player, and then the bass player came up with our description. So if you've gone up on our page and you see the description of our page and the reviews, he wrote all the reviews, which we didn't have any at the time. So he came up with these really creative ideas, and they were so funny. We laughed for hours after he did that. And so it just seemed to work out really well. Unfortunately, those two members moved on to something else they wanted to do. So we wish them well with what they're doing. And we do have a couple new members that we're working in right now. I've got a new drummer that he toured with Whitesnake back in the day. So he did one of their tours, Richard Carbo, and then we have Roger Stevenson on bass now. So that should be interesting. We'll see how this is going to work out. So a couple more months and in rehearsals, and we should be back out at it.
It definitely it sounds like a very awesome I would say rock experience that is T.O.U.R, and I think it's really cool. So like, what can people expect when they see T.O.U.R live?
So T.O.U.R, what we try to do, we don't look like them. I don't look like Don Dokken because I've got blonde hair, but but what we try to accomplish with T.O.U.R is the arena. We want to have the arena feel. So when you went to the arena shows back in the 80s, there's masses of lights, there were smoke machines, lasers. Sometimes there were pyrotechnical things going on in the background. Some of the clubs allow that, some don't now. So we try to recreate those sights and sounds and the feel of the ambience of the whole experience from the 80s, and bring that back just to kind of pay tribute to those bands that were iconic and, for us. So and Dokken and Rat surely bring that out. So we've got some great light shows. We've got really good sound men when we have this out. So the shows really, really come together, especially once you bring all the lights into it. The bigger the venue, obviously, the bigger the light show. the bigger the PA. So we want everyone to go when they walk in, go, wow. So you don't really see that much now. But with cover bands, that's what separates us from being a cover band and a tribute act. So again, we don't really try to look like them. We damn sure like to sound like them. And we try to recreate that studio album that they had. So we might go a little bit out of bounds with the leads and the endings and the beginnings, but other than that, we kind of stick to the formats pretty tight.
That all sounds like really awesome. As I said, an experience, especially like light shows. Honestly, I think they're awesome. I think they're so underused nowadays, where it's kind of more just like a basic rock show. But like back then, even though I'm obviously not old enough to be going to shows in the 80s, but it was from what I've seen, obviously on TV, like obviously like Kiss, Dokken, all those other great acts and performers, it was really a show more than a concert.
Oh yes, even Motley Crue back in the 80s, this awesome show. I'll never forget the first time I saw Motley Crue, and I was just in awe. I wasn't into the band as much, but after that show, I was wow, those guys were just fantastic. They put on one hell of a show. Tommy Lee doing this thing upside down and on this drum set, and I'm thinking, well, we're not going to be able to do that because obviously there'd be too much liability if our drummer falls out. He'll be a paraplegic, so we don't want that to happen.
Just make sure you're strapped in really good. Just duct tape them to the seat. It'll be good.
Right. Yeah. A bungee cord would be excellent. That way he'd pop back into the seat.
Oh, that would be a good idea.
You can drop down over the top, come back down, give some high fives.
That might be. You might have to include that part of the show, man. I think that would be good.
Yeah. I mean, even Bon Jovi did that. Now, of course, I wouldn't know if I'd want to strap in and just jump out across the stage and have them, zip line me across everything. But that would be fun. But again, do I want to take the risk? So
there seems to be a lot of liability, and there are a lot of things that could go wrong. But if you pull it off, you could be a legend.
That's right. Exactly. So I mean, and of course, obviously, in the smaller clubs, we couldn't do that.
No.
So we really try to stick to the larger clubs where they're 300-500 at a minimal on up. And it's nice to get into the bigger venues where they're 2,500 plus. So that makes things a lot more, when you have a sea of people, it's just a lot more fun.
Oh yeah, and that's with any show. Like the more people that are into the show, it's gonna be a really good show. I've been to shows where it's like there's like 10 people around, and they're not as fun. Definitely. Not as fun.
But you got to, as a musician, if you're doing what we do, then whether there's 10 or 10,000, you've got to perform just as well. So I mean, it's all true. Yeah.
Very true. In some interest, you did talk about it briefly. I do want to cover it a little bit more. So like, what is like the big difference between like a cover band and a tribute band?
So cover bands in general will have more of a variety of what they do. The members of the band will say, well, I want to do Priest, I want to do Dokken, I want to do Aerosmith, and they might go a little more mainstream, with radio stuff. A good example was back in the day, we used to do a song by the Tubes called Talk to Me Lately. It's got a lot of keyboards in it. A lot of people probably don't know it now, but back then in the 80s, when we pulled that off, it was real popular. So, in the clubs, in order to keep people with cover tunes, you've got to touch on what they like. Not really like what you like, it's what they like. So with Dokken, we kind of get, with T.O.U.R, we kind of get a little bit more artistic value out of that. So we can present what we really liked when we were growing up and what was popular. So we still pick the popular songs. And obviously there's songs in there in the set list where you don't have what was considered a lot of radio play. Now Rat, almost everything that you do, they had radio play. So Dokken could get a little bit obscure, but yeah, that's the difference. And then we always, you'll hear me mention a lot of things about being iconic. So when I say iconic, we're choosing those bands that would, if they put on ticket sales, Guns N' Roses, they'd sell out in probably maybe hours or a day. So, and that's the bigger difference. The other bands that we did, we love them all. I mean, Aerosmith, whether it's Judas Priest or anything else that you could possibly think of that were in the 80s or even the 70s, people like. So we just, the difference is the way we can present it, and then what we actually choose to do. And again, so we can go back and forth over, okay, well, what was more popular as far as cover tunes? And a lot of bands don't take a lot of time with covers to really work out all the nuances within the songs. So getting all these elements together and having the drummer know his parts really well, and then the singer and the guitar player, and everything pulls together nice and tight with that unit. That's kind of what makes us a little different.
Yeah, I really like the your explanation for that, because like there's like a lot of like cover bands where I am in the Midwest, where it's like mostly they just play they go from like, oh, here's an Aerosmith song, here's a Journey song, Motley Crue, like they kind of just jump around with songs, and you can kind of tell like they're kind of playing it. They're not really like into the music, or like really know it like the back of their hand. Like you can tell sometimes with bands, but like I've seen some really great tribute bands. Like there's some really great ones touring right now that act, like there's like a Disturbed one, and like obviously Seven Dust. There's like a bunch of huge tribute bands, and like they're almost spot on to like the actual band itself. It's very impressive.
It is. I've seen a lot of Bon Jovi bands, a lot of AC/DC bands, like you said, Journey. There's several local tribute bands here that are really excellent, that do Journey and stuff like that. So, and the good thing about that is you can actually lift your group up to where you can stay state, local, you can go regional, or you can actually go national with it. Now, that's something we really want to do, is get to where we can be on a national level and go all around the United States with that. With COVID now, it's kind of iffy. Everything's kind of changing. So let's just hope we get through all that. It seems like we are. And then we can get back to doing what we love to do and give the fans what they want. So, and that's really the most important thing. Give them what they want. We get what we want. They get what they want. We all have good fun doing it.
Exactly. Entertaining the masses. That is always the number one goal. That's I think for every band.
Oh, absolutely. And you want that sea of people. I mean, if I could have 25,000 people in front of me a night, bring it on, So.
That would be awesome. So obviously you are a vocalist, but also, as you said, you play rhythm guitar. But like for some of those songs, like Dokken and Rat, like you really gotta really have to have good vocal cords and voice for some of those lyrics and pitches. So like, do you do anything, like do you warm up before you take the stage, before you sing?
Yeah, so we do warm up. One of the tricks we did, and I learned this back when I was first playing, because we were playing 7 nights a week, and so we tune down a half a step. Now, a lot of people don't really realize that, or that it makes that much of a difference. It makes a big difference. If you're a vocalist, do it. Because I'm telling you, you'll save your voice, and it depends on how much you play. We usually play during the week, if it's 3, maybe 4 times a week. And it varies. Sometimes it's just the weekends. It just depends. But all of us are semi-retired, and we have the freedom to do that now. We don't have to have our regular jobs because we're semi-retired. So with our day job and what we did to pay the bills, but now we can have fun. So it's interesting once you get to that point.
Yeah, definitely. I always kind of ask, especially like if you're doing tributes music, it's always, you have to sound obviously very similar, especially some of those bands like from like the 70s and 80s. Some of them can't even match what they did back then, because obviously they're older, and obviously it's different. So it's always interesting, like when how you prepare for stuff, because obviously some people's voices are still good compared to others. Like I know Vince Neil is kind of with with this voice, but it's always cool. It's always interesting. But yes, definitely vocal warm-ups and training, very important as well.
Yeah, we do that. And when I grew up vocally, I grew up, so my parents were real strict Baptists. We had to go to like church like 4 times a week, but I was very involved with the choirs. So from children's choirs to the youth choir, And so that's really how I got my vocal abilities up and going, because a lot of stuff we did either a cappella or we did it with an accompaniment. So in the church choir, we had like 180 people in our church, in our youth choir. It was a huge thing. We used to do tours. It was fun. So we were hellions while we were out there. We shouldn't have been, because we should have been representing what we were doing, but we got in a little bit of trouble while we were at the hotels and stuff. So, but other than that, that's where most of my vocal training came from. And we definitely do the warm-ups before we go on. So there's a repertoire of things we do. Of course, some of it's boring, so you do your consonants and or your vowels, and you go through that like 3 or 4 times, and y'all good? You good? Okay, let's go. And then we might do every now and then we'll just do an a cappella thing with the Eagles, so because they always had the best oohs and ahs in the business. So we kind of do that a little bit. Or Yes was another good band that did that. So they did those little things that we call them hoots, hoo, 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 hoo. And we would do that. So then we start, okay, you harmonize, and we break it down in 3 and 4 parts. Fortunately with T.O.U.R, when we had Todd and the bass player, they all sang. So we would work on this. Now we have Richard sings, and the drummer sings, and he sings all the higher parts, which really helps. Now Mick can sing these really, really high parts, and I can too if I'm just singing guitar and playing and singing backups. But I won't usually go for those really high backup notes. I'll let them do that, since I'm being the lead singer and I'm out front. Then I'll stick to my part and let them do what they got to do. It's on them. So, but yeah, we do a lot of vocal warm-ups, especially before we go on. Another good tip I had, when I was younger, I was in this band. It was obviously my stage name is Freddie Lipz, so I had this band called Lipz, and my guitar player Chris Husted, he knew these guys, and they were called White Heat. It was out of Richmond, Virginia, and so White Heat did a lot of original material, and they were looking for a singer, and they got a guy named Carl Snare. So Carl Snare is now the singer for let's see, Senior Moment. Trying to think of the name of their band. I could picture them. Finally found the love of a lifetime. What's that song? Oh boy. I'm trying to think of the name of the band right now.
It's not Great White, is it?
No. Love of a Lifetime. No. It'll pop up on me soon. I should have mentioned it now that I forgot the name. But Carl sings for them, and he was an opera singer. So he used to come up to me and goes, "Did you do your warm-ups?" And what warm-ups? He goes, "Follow me." So he showed me some warm-ups. He goes, "So what are you drinking?" He goes, "Pepsi." I said, "Pepsi." He goes, "Bad. Caffeine's bad. Don't do that." So he gave me all this list of stuff, do's and don'ts for singers. So, but you can find it. You can Google it now. And so if you're a singer, look it up, because you need to know, because you need to keep your voice in shape. There's a lot to do that, especially as you get older. So you definitely want to stay loose.
Yeah, I'm always, like, I'm actually, for my podcast, because I do it so often, like a few interviews ago, like my voice kind of gave out. So I've been actually like looking up vocal warm-ups and training, just even though I'm not singing or yelling or anything. It's like I'm constantly using my voice for these podcasts and episodes. So like I'm trying to actually get into good habits of keeping my voice where it doesn't go out on me.
Yes, and I know when I was playing 7 nights a week, and my vocal instructor was telling me, "Fred, you can't do that. You can't sing 3 hours a night, 7 nights a week. You're going to lose your voice." And she was right. So I lost my voice. I can remember many years. It seemed like every year it was almost like a seasonal thing. I'd lose my voice for 3 months, and she was definitely on me. You cannot do that. Do not. I won't teach you anymore if you do this. So we had to cut back, but she was right. It definitely helped with that. And so live and learn, folks, because you're not Iron Man yet. I can change a string on my guitar. I can't do that with my vocals.
That'd be very tricky to try.
Yes. Yeah. Lesson operation on your vocals, and we don't want to have to go through that.
Definitely not. That doesn't sound very comfortable. So, a couple things before as I wrap up this interview, I'm gonna end with a fun question. So, what music have you been listening to this week?
This week, let me see. I was listening to Get Your Wings, and obviously, I'm always listening to the Dokken and the Rat almost on a weekly basis, just to make sure I'm not missing things, because I'm always going, wait a minute, I really didn't realize that one little part was in there. So let me go back and let's redo that. So I'm always rehashing that. And one of my other favorite bands is Queensryche, obviously, the original Queensryche.
Yes.
So go back to that. And I love Jeff Tate during that era. What a singer that guy was. Incredible. Even the vocals in that band. I mean, those are the things that I always look for in a band. If I could be personally part of a band, is the backing vocals. So today you don't really need it so much because it's a little heavier. I still like those bands, and once again, that's why we go back to those iconic bands that we liked in the '80s, because they actually did that, and to me, it just sounded better. But it's all personal taste.
Music is very, very subjective, but it's also obviously many people can like the same kind of music. This week, I've been listening to LA Guns, as I kind of said in the beginning of this episode. Been really listening to them this week because they really rock. They really do. So.
LA Guns I liked. And in the earlier days, I really didn't know them that well, know of them that well. Mick, when he was out there when he was younger, he went out to California, so he kind of met these people all before they became something. And if I'm not correct, let's see, LA Guns, and then one of the Tracy Guns, I think he was part of Guns N' Roses, if I'm not correct, when they first started out. So I don't know if they'll ever bring him back into the fray or not. Probably not. Now they got Slash, they don't need him. So
yeah, you're probably Slash and Axl Rose. So I mean, yeah, but yes, he was originally part of them. I think that's where they got he came up with the LA Guns. Obviously Guns N' Roses. So very closely related. I found that out a few years ago from my boss, my former boss. He's like, "You listen to LA Guns? He used to be part of Guns N' Roses." I was like, "What? Really?" He's like, "Yeah, look it up." So I'm like, "Oh, you're right."
Yeah, Axl Rose, Tracy Guns, Guns. There you go. That was a great concept, by the way. I mean, fortunately they could use their last name, so worked out really well for them. Both bands worked out really well. They're still out playing. They're still out doing their things. So kudos to those bands that are doing that, because it's the eras of those bands are slowly coming to an end, which is sad. Let's hope the young people just carry it on. So
yeah, there's a lot of definitely up and coming bands with those kind of 70s and 80s vibes. So I'm definitely very curious where they're gonna go. Obviously bands like obviously Greta Van Fleet, Dirty Honey, those kind of bands. So I'm very curious what their legacy is going to be and how they progress as well.
It's going to be interesting, So music always has its ebbs and flows. I can remember when I was presenting tapes and CDs to record labels, and you sound dated. Not dated. What's that mean? Like 80s, and oh man, so that's like the kiss of death. So you don't want me? No, but you can stick to your guns, or you could go with the trend. And if you stick to your guns, you can hope it all comes back around and you can start all over again. I'll stick to my guns because that's what I do better. So, I mean, obviously, I would rather, if I was versatile enough to do things like Vetter and stuff like that, which I wasn't, that would have been a nice thing to step into. Seven Dust was in one of those bands that also did that too. They all played in cover bands back before they actually got signed. I saw many of them in different bands, really good bands. Seven Dust definitely changed things up, and they still bring in the backing vocals with the harmonies and stuff. So it's nice to see something heavy with those things in. So kudos to Seven Dust. I like it.
Seven Does is very unique just because like they've done like all acoustic shows, and I've talked to people who I haven't seen an acoustic show by Seven Dust, but like I've talked to people who are big Seven Dust fans, and then like they're like that acoustic show. There's like it was so emotional, especially with the different harmonies and the acoustic version of the song that it was just really good. So they do a lot of different elements, but like they can be really heavy, but also they can do acoustic songs really well as well.
Yes, they present a great show. Lejean is a great singer. The whole band is awesome. Can't say enough about those guys. They're just since they're from Atlanta, and that's where I was for 20 years. You know, I'm always supporting our Atlanta brothers. So, but they definitely pulled that one off really well. Look forward to seeing them again.
Yeah, Seven Does. Seven Does is awesome. Also, shout out to the ATL as well, because why not?
Yes, exactly right.
But then I'll be wrapping up this interview. As I said, definitely check out T.O.U.R. Hopefully, you know, obviously things are starting to open up. Hopefully, you get to see them live. I know it's going to be a great show. But Freddie, how are you going to close out 2021, and what does 2022 look like?
2021, we're closing that out with actually rehearsals, getting this band back to where we need it to get before we go back on the road. 2022 is going to be exciting. So 2022, we want to actually do a full tour, U.S. tour. So that's the plan. Fingers crossed. We got to get together and get out playing in January. So we're going to do some statewide shows here to kind of dust us off and polish everything up. And then hopefully we can get out there and do the U.S. tour, and probably start in late spring, go through maybe November, and then take a break and start all over again.
That's definitely really awesome. If you're up in my way in Indiana, I really want to see you guys. So it'll be awesome. But hopefully all that works out. Hopefully there's a good 2022, and a lot of great things should be happening. But definitely check out T.O.U.R, Titans of Unforgettable Rock. Freddie, thank you so much for hanging out with me here on Super Cool Radio.
Sure, thank you. And also look us up on Facebook, T.O.U.R, Titans of Unforgettable Rock. So you can find us there. You can find out where we're playing at. We'll have our tour dates, where we're playing, where everyone can go. And I'm definitely going to get out to the Midwest and meet you, brother.
Yes, I look forward to it, definitely. So yeah, the tour, hopefully, I hope it happens, dude, because I really want to meet you too.
Awesome. We're looking forward to it.
So I'll leave some links for T.O.U.R in the description of this video. For Freddie Lipz of Titans of Unforgettable Rock, T.O.U.R, I am Matthew Thomas, the host of Super Cool Radio. Thank you so much for watching or listening. Stay frosty.
Right on. Peace.